I'm not sure what finally made me snap. Maybe it was the way the room went quiet right before they all burst into laughter, like even they knew they were crossing a line but couldn't help themselves. Or maybe it was the way my wife didn't even flinch when she saw what they were sliding across the table. Like it was just another Tuesday. Like it was normal. But nothing about that night was normal to me. Not the cheap apron. Not the laughter. Not the way I felt like a guest in my own life. My name's Ryan. I'm 36. And this was the moment I realized I'd been the butt of a joke for way too long in a family that liked to pretend it was all in good fun. Spoiler, it wasn't. I guess I should start with a little background. I've never been the loudest guy in the room. I'm not the kind to interrupt or compete for attention. I listen more than I talk, which, in a family like my wife's, made me stick out like a sore thumb. Her family, the Devereaux, are what you might call big personalities. They interrupt each other constantly, shout over one another at the dinner table, and every single interaction is laced with some inside joke or passive jab that you're supposed to laugh off. If you don't, you're too sensitive. I learned that early. It was always framed as humor. We tease because we love, her dad used to say. If we didn't like you, we wouldn't bother joking with you. Right. Except most of their jokes were aimed squarely at me. And they weren't funny. I met Claire, my wife, 10 years ago at a work conference. She was confident, charming, sharp, everything I wasn't. Somehow we clicked. I think part of her liked that I didn't need to be the center of attention. I liked that she seemed to understand me. Or at least, I thought she did. We got married 2 years after we met, and that's when the jokes started ramping up. Her brother Josh was the worst. The kind of guy who thinks making someone else uncomfortable is a form of entertainment. Every family gathering became a roast, and I was always the main course. It started small, teasing my cooking when we hosted, making jabs about how I married up, laughing at how I dressed like an accountant even on weekends. I work in finance, so yeah. At first, I tried to laugh along. I didn't want to be the uptight guy who couldn't take a joke. Claire told me not to take it personally. They don't mean anything by it, she'd say. It's just how they are. But it kept escalating. The running joke, the one that stuck, started during our second Thanksgiving together as a married couple. I'd offered to help cook, and I guess I'd misunderstood something about the stuffing recipe. I used the wrong kind of bread. That was it. Claire's mom, Janice, laughed and called it Ryan's mystery stuffing, and everyone made a big show of spitting it into napkins. Josh said it tasted like recycled cardboard, and even Claire joined in. I laughed it off. I really did. I thought, okay, it's just a joke. I'll survive. But every single family event after that, there was always some callback. A burned dish was a Ryan special. A bland soup was classic Ryan cuisine. They started calling me Chef Boyarnon. Josh even made a fake Yelp review for my restaurant and read it aloud during Christmas dinner. 1 star. Terrible service. Tasted like regret. It wasn't just the jokes, though. It was the way they never let me forget I wasn't really one of them. Like the time they planned a family vacation and forgot to include me in the group chat. Or the time Claire's dad gave everyone in the family these engraved pocket knives for Christmas, a Devereaux tradition, he said, and handed me a bottle opener instead. You're more of a beer guy than a blade guy, right? He winked. Everyone laughed. Claire smiled nervously. I just nodded and twisted the cap off a soda. I should have spoken up sooner. I know that. But every time I tried to bring it up, Claire brushed it off. Said I was overthinking it. Said I needed thicker skin. And maybe she was right. Maybe I should have stood up for myself years ago instead of letting the resentment build until it turned into something else, something darker. Because by the time that dinner happened, the one with the apron, I wasn't just annoyed. I was exhausted. I was done. Claire and I had been hosting more often lately. Her parents were getting older, and our house was central. I didn't mind, really. I liked cooking. It was one of the few things that made me feel grounded. In control. I'd gotten good at it, too. Watched tutorials, practiced techniques, learned flavors and pairings. But of course, none of that mattered to the Devereaux. To them, I was still the guy who messed up the stuffing 7 years ago. Still the punchline. That night, I'd made beef Wellington. From scratch. It took me 2 days of prep, getting the duxelle right, chilling the pastry, wrapping it tight. Claire helped a little, but mostly it was me. I was proud of it. It looked beautiful. Golden brown, perfectly crisp. I plated it carefully, added roasted root vegetables, and a red wine reduction. I even lit candles. Set the table with the nice dishes. Try to make it feel like something special. Claire's parents arrived first, then Josh and his girlfriend, then her sister and brother-in-law. The usual suspects. Dinner started off fine. Polite compliments. A few clinks of glasses. I was starting to think maybe, just maybe, they'd turn a corner. Maybe I'd finally earned their respect. But then, as I was clearing the plates for dessert, Josh stood up and said, "Wait, before dessert, we've got a gift for the chef." Everyone laughed. My stomach dropped. Claire looked down at her lap. Josh pulled something from under the table, a crumpled paper bag, and slid it toward me. I knew I shouldn't open it. I knew whatever was inside, it wasn't going to be good. But I did. And there it was. A cheap white apron, stiff and plasticky, with the words "Family's Running Joke" printed across the front in big block letters. Below it, a cartoon chef with a flaming pan and a confused expression. They all cracked up. Claire didn't stop them. Janice wiped tears from her eyes. "Oh, honey, it's just a bit of fun." Josh high-fived his girlfriend. "Now you've got a uniform for your mystery stuffing, bro." And that was it. That was the moment. Something in me just snapped. I didn't yell, didn't cry, didn't throw the apron. I just stood up, walked to the hallway, grabbed my keys from the dish, and left. Didn't say a word. Didn't look back. Claire called my name, once, softly, but she didn't follow. And I didn't come home that night. Or the next. 2 weeks passed. I stayed in a rented cabin a few hours away. No cell service. No Wi-Fi. Just silence. I left Claire one message, told her I was safe, that I needed time. No response. I figured she was angry. Or embarrassed. But then one day, I drove into town for groceries, turned on my phone, and saw it, the Facebook post. Claire had written, "Please, if anyone's seen him, tell him we're sorry. We didn't mean to push him away. Ryan, if you're out there, just come home." And for the first time in 2 weeks, I felt something shift. But I wasn't sure if it was enough. And I wasn't sure if I was done being the punchline. Not yet. I didn't go home right away. Even after I saw Claire's post, even after the guilt started creeping into my chest like cold fog, I didn't pack up and drive back. Not because I wanted to punish her. I just didn't know if there was a place for me to return to. The cabin was quiet, peaceful. No snide remarks over dinner. No laughter that lingered half a beat too long after something at my expense. No more wondering if my wife was going to laugh with them or stand by me. For the first time in years, I had space to breathe. Think. Just be. I'd wake up to birds instead of alarm clocks. Make breakfast for one. Walk by the lake. Journal in the afternoons. Listen to the wind move through the trees. And the silence wasn't scary, it was honest. For the first time, my life didn't feel like a performance. I didn't feel like a prop. But I wasn't made of stone. I checked my phone again the next day. The post had gotten dozens of comments, some from her friends, some from family. "Ryan's a good guy. He'll come around," one said. Another, "Josh always takes things too far." And one that made my jaw tighten. "Maybe he finally realized he doesn't belong." That one was from Josh. It got one like. From Claire. I don't know if she meant to. Maybe she was scrolling and hit it by accident. Maybe she didn't even see what he said. But it was there, clear as day. Maybe he finally realized he doesn't belong. And Claire had liked it. That was when the hurt turned into something else. Not rage, not yet. But something sharper than sadness. A kind of clarity. I stayed gone for 3 more days. On the 4th, I called Claire. She picked up on the first ring. "Ryan." Her voice cracked. "I saw the post," I said. I kept my tone flat. I didn't want to start this with emotion. I needed answers. "Oh, thank God," she whispered. "Where are you? Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said. "I just needed time." "I know," she said quickly. "I'm so sorry, Ryan. What they did was awful. I should have stopped them. I should have defended you. I didn't think you'd leave like that." "I didn't think I would either," I said. "But Claire, this has been going on for years." There was a pause. "I know," she finally admitted. "I kept thinking if I didn't make it a big deal, they'd stop. Or you'd get used to it. But that apron, God, that was too much." Josh thought it was funny. My mom thought. She stopped herself. I told them they went too far. "You liked his comment," I said. "What?" she asked, caught off guard. "Josh's comment. Maybe he finally realized he doesn't belong." "You liked it." Silence. "Oh my God," she said. "No, I didn't. I didn't mean to, I swear. I didn't even read it. I was scrolling, I must have." "I don't know what hurts more," I said slowly. "The fact that he said it, or that I believe it." Claire started to cry. I didn't say anything. I just let her. After a few minutes, she asked me to come home. I told her I needed a little longer. That was true. But the other truth? I didn't just need space. I needed to decide what came next. I returned 3 days later. Claire greeted me at the door like I'd come back from war. Her arms wrapped around my neck, her fingers trembling. I hugged her back, but it wasn't the same. Something in me had shifted, and I think she felt it too. The next week was awkward. She tried hard, cooked my favorite meals, rubbed my back at night, left notes around the house like we were newlyweds. I appreciated the effort, but the unspoken thing between us hovered like a ghost in every room. Then came Easter. Claire begged me to come, said it would mean a lot, that her parents wanted to apologize in person. I asked if Josh would be there. She said yes, but promised it would be different. It's just lunch, she said. 1 hour. You don't even have to stay for dessert. I reluctantly agreed. I told myself I was going for her, to see if maybe this family could finally act like one. Spoiler, they couldn't. It started fine. The usual fake pleasantries. Claire's dad asked about work. Her mom commented on my haircut. Josh nodded at me and said, "Hey, chef," like nothing had ever happened. I ignored it. Lunch was lamb roast, potatoes, a salad Claire made. I stayed quiet, let Claire carry most of the conversation. I counted the minutes. Told myself I'd leave the moment they pulled out the desserts. But then Janice clinked her glass with a spoon. "I just want to say," she said, lifting her wine, "we're really happy to have you back, Ryan. It wasn't the same without you. Even if you did run off over a silly apron." The room froze. Claire inhaled sharply. Josh snorted into his drink. And just like that, the tension snapped back like a rubber band. "I'm sorry," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, I didn't mean it like that," Janice said, waving her hand. "I just mean, we joke around, but it's never meant to hurt. You know that, right? We're family." "You've made that very clear," I said, standing. "Crystal, actually." Claire grabbed my arm. "Ryan, please." But I couldn't stay. Not another second. I left. Again. Except this time, I didn't go to a cabin. I went to a hotel downtown. I needed a new plan. Claire texted all night. Called. Left voicemails. I didn't respond. The next morning, I got an email. From Josh. Subject line: "You really gonna keep sulking?" No greeting. No punctuation. Just 2 sentences. "Man up already. You knew what you were marrying into." I stared at it for a long time. And then, like a light switch, something flipped. Because here's the thing. I had known. Somewhere deep down, I had always known. I married into a family that thrived on control disguised as chaos. That used humor like a scalpel. That didn't want a son-in-law, they wanted a mascot. Someone to make fun of, to point at, to use as their collective punching bag. And Claire? I wasn't even sure if she was in on it, or just too afraid to break from the pack. But what they didn't know, what no one in that house knew, was that I hadn't spent the last 10 years just being mocked. I'd been building something. They thought I worked a boring finance job. Numbers and spreadsheets. They didn't know I'd co-founded a boutique investment firm that started with 3 clients and now managed over $120 million in assets. They didn't know I owned partial shares in 2 local restaurants. They didn't know the house they loved to gather in wasn't in Claire's name. It was in mine. Paid off in full. Under a trust. They didn't know because I never told them. Because I didn't want to flash wealth or throw status in anyone's face. I just wanted to be treated like a person. Like family. But now I was done playing the fool. A week passed. I didn't go home. Claire begged me to come back. I told her I needed space. I needed to think. But really, I was preparing. And then came the final blow. It was the following Saturday. Claire sent me a message saying her parents wanted to make things right. That they were planning a surprise dinner in my honor. An apology dinner, she called it. I asked where. She said her parents' house. I almost laughed. Of course. The stage where every insult had been performed. The theater of humiliation. Still, I agreed to come. I told her I'd be there. What I didn't tell her was that I wouldn't be alone. That night, I showed up to the Devereaux house at exactly 6 p.m. And I brought company. Claire answered the door. Her smile faltered when she saw who was with me. "Ryan," she said, eyes flicking between me and the woman beside me. "What is this?" "This is Evelyn," I said calmly. "My attorney." "Your what?" "Attorney." Her parents had come into the foyer by then. Josh, too. Claire's mom narrowed her eyes. "Is this some kind of joke?" "No," I said, stepping inside. "But I'm glad you brought that up." I looked around the house. Looked at the people who'd spent a decade laughing at me. I felt my pulse slow instead of spike. No fear. No hesitation. Just calm. And then I opened the folder in Evelyn's hands. And I started to speak. Let's back up for a second. Because before I stood there in their foyer with my attorney, before I ever uttered a word that night, before I could even imagine a version of myself that had the spine to do that, I had to fall. Hard. See, standing up to them took more than just anger. It took something I didn't have the night I walked out after the apron. Back then, I was still hoping for a version of my life where they accepted me, where Claire stood up for me, where I wasn't a joke. I was holding on to the hope that they would change, that someone, anyone, would realize how damaging it was to be laughed at in your own home, humiliated in front of your wife, and gaslit into thinking it was all in good fun. But after that Easter lunch, after Janice's snide little toast and Josh's email, that hope evaporated. What was left in its place wasn't anger, not at first. It was grief. Pure, aching grief. Not for them, but for the life I thought I'd built. For the idea of Claire. For the 10 years I'd spent contorting myself to be liked by people who had no intention of ever letting me in. I didn't eat for a day, barely slept. I stayed in that downtown hotel and stared at the ceiling fan spin. Kept replaying everything. Claire giggling when Josh read that fake Yelp review. Janice handing me a bottle opener when every other man got a knife. The way they smirked when I got uncomfortable, like they could smell blood in the water and it made dinner taste better. But the lowest point came 2 nights later. I'd finally gone back to the house. Ours. The one they always assumed Claire owned. I slipped in around midnight. Quiet. Just wanted to grab a few more clothes. Claire was asleep. Or pretending to be. Her suitcase was open in the closet, full. She hadn't unpacked it since I left for the cabin. The bedroom felt like a museum of a marriage that used to mean something. On the dresser, I saw something that stopped me cold. The apron. Still folded. Still stiff. Still smug. She hadn't thrown it away. That's when I sat down on the edge of the bed and cried. Not just a few tears. The ugly kind. The 10 years wasted kind. The I don't know who I married kind. I cried until I couldn't breathe. Until my chest felt hollow. That was the bottom. But something happened when I hit it. I felt a weird kind of stillness. Like all the noise that had filled my head. The voices telling me to be patient, to be polite, to give them the benefit of the doubt, had finally shut up. There was nothing left to lose. And when there's nothing left to lose, there's everything to build. The next morning, I made a decision. I wasn't going to try to win them over anymore. I wasn't going to explain myself. I wasn't going to wait for Claire to finally choose me over their approval. I wasn't even going to yell. I was going to rise. Quietly. Methodically. Permanently. First, I called my firm's corporate attorney and asked about updating some documents. Then I called Evelyn. She wasn't just any lawyer. She was someone I trusted. Someone I'd met 5 years ago when I helped her navigate a business investment through my firm. Brilliant, discreet, and not afraid of a little heat. When I told her everything, she didn't flinch. They don't respect you, she said plainly. And your wife enables them. I know, I said. Then what do you want? I didn't answer right away. What I wanted was to feel powerful again. Not in a petty way. Not revenge for its own sake. I just wanted to feel like a man who hadn't been erased in his own life. Like I had a spine. Like I mattered. I want to take back my story, I said. She nodded. Let's do it. Over the next 2 weeks, I quietly rebuilt everything they had tried to chip away. I moved my assets into a trust, one they couldn't touch or interfere with. I updated the house deed to reflect the original ownership, mine alone, under a holding company I'd created years ago. I canceled a few joint accounts Claire had opened, mostly innocuous stuff like grocery delivery and vacation apps tied to her email, but it was symbolic. A clean slate. I changed my beneficiaries, updated my living will, blocked Josh's number, and I booked a session with a therapist, someone objective, someone who, in our first session, listened for 20 minutes and then said, "You know this is emotional abuse, right?" That hit me hard, because somewhere deep down, I did know. I just hadn't said the word out loud. I hadn't wanted to label it, because labeling it meant I had to accept it, and accepting it meant something even scarier. I had allowed it, not because I was weak, but because I thought that was what love looked like. Compromise. Laughter. Not making a big deal out of things. But love doesn't belittle. It doesn't erode your sense of self one snide joke at a time. So yeah, I was done. And during that time, while I was rebuilding my emotional foundation, I found something else. Strength. I started waking up early again. Not out of stress. Just naturally. I'd make coffee, sit in the sunroom, and write. Not even anything deep. Just thoughts. Reflections. A record of who I really was, when I wasn't being watched like prey. I even went back to the kitchen. I cooked not to impress anyone, not to prove anything, just because I loved it. I'd make steak au poivre or mushroom risotto just for me. Played it like I was at a restaurant. Light a candle. Eat slowly. No audience. No laughter. Just me. It was peaceful. Claire reached out a few times. Texts. A voicemail or two. All saying variations of let's talk. I didn't ignore her. I just told her I needed space. I was polite. Distant. Detached. She said she missed me. Said her parents wanted to make amends. That Josh had even written an apology letter. I didn't respond. Because I knew what they wanted wasn't resolution. They wanted the balance of power restored. And I was no longer interested in that balance. So when Claire suggested the apology dinner, I didn't argue. I told her I'd be there. On time. But I'd be bringing someone. She didn't press. Maybe she thought it was a friend. Or a therapist. Or maybe, deep down, she suspected exactly who it would be. Which brings us back to the house. To the foyer. To me, standing there with Evelyn beside me, cool as ice, holding a folder that felt heavier than it should have. Not because of paper, but because of everything it represented. 10 years of humiliation. And the end of it. Everyone stared. Janice, frozen in her pearls. Claire's dad with his jaw slack. Josh trying to act unbothered, but his knuckles were wide around his glass. Claire stood nearest to me, eyes flicking between Evelyn and me. Confused. Nervous. I opened the folder. Pulled out a slim document. This is a formal notice, I said. Going forward, all communication between myself and members of this family, excluding Claire, will go through legal counsel. Any further harassment, including public defamation, mockery, or attempts to contact me directly, will be treated as harassment and handled accordingly. What are you talking about? Janice asked, laughing nervously. Evelyn stepped forward. This isn't a joke, Mrs. Devereaux. If you'd like a copy of the cease and desist, I can provide one. Josh scoffed. Bro, are you serious right now? I didn't look at him. I looked at Claire. Her eyes were brimming with something. Not tears. Not anger. Regret. You said this was an apology dinner, I told her. You said they wanted to make things right. But you never asked what I needed. You only asked what they could do to feel better about what they did. She opened her mouth. Closed it again. I needed boundaries, I said. I needed support. And instead I got laughter. A decade of it. Ryan, I didn't know how to stop them, she said, her voice shaking. They're my family. And I was your husband. That silenced the room. No one moved. I'm not here to fight, I said. I'm not here to yell or make a scene. I'm here to reclaim my dignity. And if that makes me the villain in this house, I can live with that. With that, I turned and left. Evelyn followed. The folder still in her hands. I didn't look back, but I could hear Claire whisper my name. Not begging, not pleading, just softly, like she finally understood something she hadn't before. And the funny thing? I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel smug. I just felt clean, like a weight had been lifted. But the story wasn't over. Not even close. Because the next morning, something happened that no one saw coming. Not even me. The next morning started like most had since I'd begun rebuilding. Early, calm, and deliberate. I woke up before the sun rose, brewed myself a strong cup of coffee, and sat in the sunroom with my journal open in front of me. I had no intention of writing. I just wanted to sit in that silence, the kind that didn't ask anything from me, didn't push or pull, just was. It had become a ritual, one that reminded me that peace could exist outside the noise of their dinner tables and their jokes. But that morning, something disrupted the peace. Something simple. Something small. An email. From Claire. Subject line. Let's talk. Please. I stared at it for a while. I hadn't spoken to her since the night of the so-called apology dinner. And to be honest, I hadn't planned to. That night had felt like closure to me. At least, the kind you give yourself when you realize the people around you won't ever give it to you. But something about the way she'd looked at me, like she was seeing me for the first time, or realizing she never really had, made a part of me hesitate before hitting delete. The body of the email was short, barely 5 lines. I know I've lost you. I probably deserve that. But I need to tell you something. Something you don't know. Can we meet? Just once. I'll come to you. No tricks. No one else. Just me. I didn't reply right away. I went about the rest of my morning, read a bit, answered some work emails, took a walk around the block. But her words lingered. Something you don't know. It wasn't the kind of thing Claire would write lightly. She wasn't cryptic. If she wanted to apologize, she'd say it. If she wanted to fix things, she'd lay out a plan. But this felt different. So I agreed. We met the next evening at a quiet cafe near the botanical garden, one of those tucked-away places no one ever thinks to go to unless they're trying not to be seen. I picked a table in the corner, away from the windows. She arrived a few minutes late, her hair pulled back, wearing a pale blue coat I'd bought her 3 Christmases ago. It used to be her favorite. She hadn't worn it in months. She sat down slowly, didn't smile, didn't reach for my hand, just sat there, like someone arriving at a funeral. "I'm not here to ask you to come back," she said after a moment. "I know that ship's probably sailed." I didn't say anything, just sipped my tea. She looked down, fidgeted with the edge of her sleeve. Then she said it. "I didn't know they were recording you." My hand froze midair. "Recording me?" I asked quietly. She nodded. "At Easter, after you left, Josh and my dad had their phones out during dinner. They were trying to get reactions. They thought it'd be funny." I blinked. "They filmed me. Just you opening the apron, really. And your face afterward. Josh said he wanted to use it in one of his dumb skit videos. You know, the ones he posts on TikTok. Like a parody thing. A cringe husband compilation or something." I felt my stomach drop. "Claire, are you telling me there's video of that night floating around online?" She looked up, eyes filled with something between shame and fear. "It's not posted. Not yet. But Josh still has it. I asked him to delete it." He laughed. Said, "It's gold. People eat this stuff up." I leaned back in my chair, absorbing the hit. Claire bit her lip. "Ryan, I didn't know until after you left. I swear. And when I found out, I was furious. I told him it wasn't just cruel, it was illegal. You didn't give consent. He told me to chill, and that no one would know it was real. But I know my brother. He thinks if it gets views, it's worth it." I closed my eyes for a long moment. "And your parents?" I asked. She hesitated. Didn't care. Said it was just a joke. My mom actually said, "Well, he did storm off dramatically. That's on him." Of course she did. That was the final thread snapping. Not just the disrespect. The mockery. The complete erasure of my dignity, not just in private, but now, potentially public. I opened my eyes. Looked her dead in the face. "Thank you for telling me," I said. "But you understand, this changes everything." She nodded. "I do." I left the cafe without another word. And by the time I got home, I already had the beginning of a plan. See, I'd spent the last decade shrinking myself to fit into their world. But now I had something they didn't know I had. Leverage. Josh wanted views. He was about to get them. Only it wouldn't be the kind of attention he bargained for. That night, I called Evelyn. Would filming someone in a private home without consent and threatening to post it qualify as defamation or invasion of privacy? I asked. "Absolutely," she said. "Depending on how it's used, it could also qualify as emotional distress. And if he tries to monetize it, even worse for him." "Good," I said. "Then let's play a little offense." Over the next 2 weeks, we moved with quiet precision. First, Evelyn sent a formal notice to Josh and his attorney. Yes, he had one. It's always the most reckless people who keep lawyers on retainer. The notice demanded the immediate deletion of all footage involving me, plus a signed affidavit confirming it hadn't been duplicated, stored elsewhere, or uploaded. Josh ignored it. So Evelyn sent a second one, this time with teeth. A drafted lawsuit. Detailed. Specific. Citing civil codes and precedents that would bury him in legal fees for months. Damages listed in 6 figures. That got his attention. But that wasn't enough for me. See, while Evelyn handled the legal side, I started working on something else. Something a little more poetic. Josh's job. He worked in PR, specifically reputation management for a local firm that handled mid-sized brands, restaurants, startups, influencers. He liked to brag that he cleaned up messes for a living. Funny, because I had a mess with his name on it. I knew one of the board members of his firm, a former client of mine. We'd had dinner a few months back, and she'd mentioned how much trouble they'd had keeping the company culture clean. One employee had been caught making misogynistic comments online and nearly cost them 2 major contracts. So I reached out, sent her an anonymous tip, along with screenshots. Of what? Oh, just some charming old posts of Josh's. Tweets. Facebook comments. Half jokes, half rants. All full of the kind of language that HR departments have nightmares about. Nothing illegal, but enough to raise a few eyebrows. Especially when paired with the information that he'd secretly recorded a family member without consent and was planning to post it online for laughs. By the end of the week, Josh was placed on temporary leave pending internal review. He didn't know I was behind it yet. But revenge, real revenge, isn't about gloating. It's about knowing they have no idea where the next blow is coming from. And it was only just beginning. Because Claire? She'd opened a door. She'd told me something she wasn't supposed to. And while I still didn't know if I could forgive her, I knew she'd cracked under the pressure of guilt, which meant others could too. So I called her sister, Amanda. We hadn't spoken one-on-one in over a year. She was quieter than the rest of the family, more observant, less cruel. I always got the sense she didn't love how they treated me, but she also never stepped in. I asked her one question. How far do you think Josh would go for attention? She was silent for a beat. Then she said, I think he already went too far. And then she told me something else. Something even Claire didn't know. Something about money. Apparently, Josh had borrowed a significant chunk from their parents for a content studio. A loan he never paid back. And the parents? They kept it quiet. Told Amanda not to bring it up. Meanwhile, they refused to help Amanda when she needed a car for work. Favoritism wasn't just a pattern. It was policy. I thanked her and added another piece to the puzzle. Because what I was building wasn't just payback. It was a mirror. I wanted them to see what they really were. And I was almost ready to show them. But not quite yet. Not until the final piece was in place. And that piece would come from inside their own house. The final piece came from inside their house. Or more specifically, from inside their inbox. About a week after I'd spoken with Amanda, I got a quiet message from an unexpected source, Amanda's husband, Eric. We'd spoken maybe a handful of times in all the years I'd known Claire's family. He was the kind of guy who stuck to the edges of their chaos, polite, reserved, always a little on the outside, like me. But he was sharper than he let on. The message was short. You might want to look at this. I've had enough of Josh too. Attached was a forwarded email chain between Josh and a brand deal manager. Apparently, Josh had taken Claire's video of me opening the Apron and sent it to a sponsor as part of a pitch. His email framed it as a real-life prank on a stuck-up brother-in-law, perfect for the campaign. His plan? To slap a canned laugh track over my reaction, blur my face slightly, and post it as a mockumentary-style bit to boost engagement. The email ended with, "We don't need his permission, he's family. He'll laugh about it eventually." That was his mistake. Because what Josh didn't realize, and what I confirmed after one quiet conversation with my legal team, was that his little pitch wasn't just unethical. It was actionable. Because now it wasn't just a joke. It was commercial use of my likeness without consent, a violation of publicity rights. And in our state, that carried serious consequences. That was the moment I knew I had everything I needed. It was time. The next part of the plan was surgical. No loud confrontations. No screaming matches. No dramatic ultimatums. Just precision. It started with Claire. I invited her to a neutral location, a small conference room Evelyn had booked. Claire arrived guarded, tired, her posture stiff. I laid everything out on the table, the emails, the video evidence, the proposed brand pitch, the cease and desist violations. Then I showed her the official lawsuit, already drafted, ready to file. Not just against Josh, but against anyone complicit in distributing or promoting the footage. Claire sat there silently, eyes scanning the pages, face pale. "You married into a circus," I said quietly. "And for a long time, I was the clown. But now the show's over." Her voice was small. "Are you really going to sue my brother?" "I don't have to," I said. "Not if he backs down. Not if he pulls the footage, signs the affidavits, and issues a formal apology. Not just to me, but publicly. Because if he wants an audience so badly, I'll give him one." Claire didn't argue. She didn't defend him. She just nodded. "Okay," she whispered. "And one more thing," I added. "We're selling the house." Her eyes widened. "But it was never your name on the deed," I said. "I let that slide for too long. I'll cover your move. Help you get on your feet if you need it. But I'm done hosting your family's insults under my roof." That was when she cried. Not because I was cruel, but because she finally understood I wasn't her punching bag anymore. I wasn't going to fold for the sake of appearances. I left her with a copy of the lawsuit and walked away. That was Monday. By Friday, things had already started to unravel. First, Josh's PR firm quietly terminated his contract. Culture conflict, they called it. But we both knew why. Amanda later told me HR had reviewed his online presence and the email trail. The moment they realized he'd tried to monetize family humiliation, they cut him loose. Then came the email from the brand sponsor. I'd sent them a clean, calm letter from Evelyn's office, informing them that using my image without consent would result in immediate litigation. Within 24 hours, they replied. The campaign was canceled, and they were reevaluating their influencer partnerships. A week later, Josh posted a vague Instagram story about being betrayed by corporate greed. No one knew what he meant, but I did. And the video? Deleted. Claire confirmed it. Amanda confirmed it. Evelyn confirmed it. But I wasn't done yet. Because revenge, real revenge, isn't just about destroying your enemy. It's about making them look in the mirror. And that moment came a week later at Claire's parents' anniversary party. Yes, I went. Uninvited. I showed up in a tailored suit, calm and quiet, just as the speeches were starting. They were hosting it in one of those rented banquet halls with a fake marble floor and cheap champagne. Everyone turned when I entered. Josh looked like he'd seen a ghost. Claire's dad frowned. Claire's mom raised her eyebrows like I'd just crashed a wedding. Claire herself stood near the back, blinking like she wasn't sure I was real. I took the mic from the DJ. Politely. Just a quick toast, I said. Won't take more than a minute. Dead silence. I just wanted to say thank you. I began, to the Devereaux family, for the hospitality over the years. The jokes, the dinners, the thoughtful gifts. Somewhere in the back, someone chuckled nervously. But most of all, I continued. Thank you for helping me find my backbone. I used to think being part of a family meant letting things slide, laughing when I wanted to cry, pretending disrespect was affection. But you've taught me something more valuable. I turned to Josh. You taught me that some people confuse cruelty with comedy, and that silence only encourages them. He stared, jaw clenched. Then I turned to the room. I used to think the worst thing was being the butt of a joke. But it's not. The worst thing is being surrounded by people who laugh at it, who reward it, who call it love. Now the room was still. No laughter. No noise. Just eyes. I raised my glass. So to the Devereaux, may you enjoy your echo chamber. I'll be leaving it for good. Then I walked out. Didn't wait for applause. Didn't need it. I left that night with nothing but the keys in my pocket and the satisfaction of knowing that, for once, the silence wasn't mine to carry. In the months that followed, I moved. Sold the house. Took my time. Picked a small but beautiful place near the water, far enough from the city that I could breathe, but close enough to work. I built my mornings around stillness again, my evenings around peace. I started hosting dinners, real ones, with people who respected me. No Chef Boyardee jokes. Just good food, good company, and laughter that didn't sting. Claire and I divorced. It was amicable, quiet. She didn't contest the house or the terms. She cried during the signing, but I didn't. I'd already grieved. Josh, last I heard, he was trying to reboot his influencer career under a different name. It wasn't going well. No sponsors, no followers, just a man shouting into a void that had finally stopped clapping. Janice and her husband never reached out. I never expected them to. Amanda and Eric send me Christmas cards now. And me? I sleep better. I wake up without the weight. I live without flinching. Because sometimes, revenge isn't a scream. It's a quiet life lived on your own terms. And for the first time in years, I'm not running from the joke. I'm the one who ended it. For good.